Hello.
Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I know it's been a nice sunny day.
Gorgeous, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll get a bit closer. Try my best to get the height and the angle
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, my phone just kept wobbling and I was like, stay put.
Yeah, I'm doing the same. It's all very delicate.
Okay. Oh, we've already got to 8 p.m. So shall we get started?
Let's go. Let me
Prompt
just
start.
yeah rip the plaster off nice and quick.
Let's go. So thank you to everyone joining to this live talk, which is part of a series called was part of an In Conversation series organised by East Meets West, which is a masterclass programme that is organised by Quad Derby, where I'm the assistant curator, and my name's Laura. I always forget to introduce myself. And who also organises Format International Photography Festival. And we also work with Grain Projects in Birmingham to create this masterclass series. And we are generously supported by the Arts Council. And this masterclass series has 15 participants that work across about 6 months with industry professionals where they aim to develop their practice. And there is always kind of a collective event at the end. And this year, due to the lockdown restrictions, the group have, well, maybe you can talk about this a bit later on, Laura, but the group has done an amazing job of shifting everything digitally with this great series, In Conversation with series, all the cohort from this year. And there's also a fantastic publication and a website, and I'll share the details of that, but it's also on the East Meets, oh, look at that beautiful publication. It's also in the East Meets West bio for anyone that wants to look later. And today I'm speaking with the lovely Laura Dicken. Here she is, and she's one of those in the masterclass program, and I will just introduce her. And so go to the right document would be helpful. So Laura is an award-winning visual artist and creative producer based in England. She works nationally and internationally using analogue photography and photomontage to make collaborative work using a process built around meaningful connection, conversations and participation. Through her work, Laura hopes to create opportunities for previously untold stories to be shared authentically, illuminating the shared human experience and celebrating the extraordinary ordinary. Her projects have received media coverage from the BBC, The Guardian, The Observer, Huck Magazine and the British Journal of Photography. She has exhibited at festivals such as Unseen Amsterdam. Her work was featured in the exhibition and publication Invisible Britain, Portraits of Hope and Resilience. And this year she was awarded the Grain Times New Art West Midlands International Bursary, which we'll discuss later. So thank you so much, Laura, for being part of this series. We had a lovely chat the other day and it's great to be talking to you again. And I mean, feel free to say anything you like, but I thought it would be really great. I think when we talk about your project shortly, it'll be evident as to kind of the way in which you work as a photographer and artist, how you approach participation and collaboration in a meaningful way, as you say in your bio. But I just wondered if we could start first of all about your background, your entry into the arts. You could just share that with us.
Yeah. Go on, sorry, Laura,
I was just going to say, if anyone has a question for Laura, pop it into the comment box and I'll keep an eye on it and then I can ask throughout the talk. And yeah, please use it. But sorry, please carry on. Tell us about your background.
It's quite convoluted, as you know. So I left school at 16 and worked in a factory, and then went to college because I decided that wasn't for me, and did A-levels, made a deal with my dad that if I was going to go to college I had to do sensible A-levels, which I did. I did English, sociology and history and politics, and then the deal was if I did well in my A-levels he would help me to go to university if I would study law. So I did my A-levels and got good grades, and then told him that I was leaving to go to art school, which went down like a Led Zeppelin. first person in my family to go to university, first person in my family to kind of get A levels and that kind of stuff. So me then going, oh, I'm going to be an artist. You know, he got this great future planned out for me. I was going to be like an amazing lawyer and earn loads of money and, you know, live in a nice house and have a fancy car and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go to art school, Dad. And we had quite a big falling out about it. We didn't talk for a while. And I studied fashion. I studied textile design because Art Foundation wouldn't have me because I hadn't even got art GCSE. So they said, no, we won't have you. And the only course that I could get on was textile design. So I did textile design. And I got told that I was really rubbish at that and that I should go and get a job in an office because I'd never do anything creative. So I didn't listen to them. And then I started studying fashion illustration. Then after I did that course, I then went and did a foundation year at Northampton. They told me I was rubbish and I'd never do anything creatively. And I was all style and no substance.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't listen to them. And I applied to go to Ravensbourne in London to study illustration. And I got an unconditional offer on the day of my interview. Yeah, take from that what you will, kids. So yeah, went to Ravensbourne, moved to London. Family still not very happy. Thought I was throwing away an opportunity and not making a very sensible choice, but moved to London, did my degree, absolutely loved it, had a great time, fantastic tutors, fantastic lecturers at Ravensbourne, brilliant industry work experience. And then left, worked as a fashion stylist for a long time, and worked as a commercial creative consultant for Arcadia, who own Selfridges and Topshop and all that kind of stuff. So I did all of their visual merchandising and competitor reports and brand reports and style reports and what's coming up and what the kids are doing and stuff. And then there was the massive crash, the financial crash. So I went from being the kid from the council estate in Bilston to being really bougie in London and going to all the parties and getting loads of free clothes and stuff to moved back to the Black Country, didn't know what to kind of do with myself, decided to go back to uni to study illustration, did a master's in illustration, and got told on my third term that I was actually better at photography than I was at illustration, because everything I did was analogue. So all of my illustrations were pen and ink and hand cut collage. And one of my tutors, who was like one of the senior guys at Central St Martin's, really liked my pictures, and he just said, can you bring some in that you haven't cut up? And he just said, you're much better at this, Laura, than illustration. And randomly, while I was finishing my masters, I randomly met Martin Parr. And I thought, well, that's Martin Parr, I'm just going to go and say hi, you know, as you do, and just got chatting to him. And he was just about to start a project in the Black Country, and I told him that I was from the Black Country, and he asked if he could have my email address and my phone number, and I said, yeah, all right then. And he introduced me to Emma Chetcuti, who's the director of Multistory, who are based in the Black Country, and I helped do some research and a bit of production for this amazing book that Martin did, Black Country Stories with Multistory. So I was kind of like a bit of a fixer and interpreter, and became mates with Martin, I guess. And it all just snowballed from there. Went on to work with David Goldblatt and Susan Moiseles and Michelle Sank, Daniel Meadows as a creative producer. And David Goldblatt convinced me to quit my job as a creative producer and follow my own practice. So bit of a late starter, and a bit of a convoluted journey to it, but I've always taken photographs, and photography has always been a part of my research and a part of my practice, even when I was an illustrator and when I worked for Arcadia, when I worked for Selfridges and Topshop head office, I'd go out, I'd do a lot of street photography because I was doing trend reports, street reports, photography's always been there.
Yeah, it's amazing, really. That's actually a comment by Nicola. Thank you, Nicola. I think it just shows how you could, so, you know, when you get those points, when the financial crash happened, you could have been like, oh, I can't keep trying with the fashion industry, I can't keep trying with the arts, it's so competitive, like, you know, it's so hard to earn a good salary, and yet, you know, you carried on, and it led to all these amazing opportunities which just happened by you taking them when they arrived, really, and kind of taking the advice fed to you at the time and going with it and just keep going, and now you're doing really well. As you know, you've had a successful career as a creative producer, but also as an artist, and also working with artists that inspire you, and I guess that was a very formative experience for you to kind of develop your practice. So
I mean, if you're going to work with photographers, work with Magnum photographers, you know.
And we'll talk about how you know, I think your approach as well is just, you know, in that moment saying hello just shows how worth it is to network yourselves when you can. And it was really great kind of hearing you talk about your entry into what is your practice through the Masterclass program, and a body of work that you discuss is called You Are Another Me. And I guess this would be a really great time to kind of introduce that project, a bit about your work, so people get to understand you a bit better.
Yeah, so all of my work, I guess you could say, is socially engaged work. I don't make work about myself. I am in all of my projects, obviously, but my work is about other people and communities, and kind of collaborating with other people to tell their own stories, rather than me kind of like helicoptering, doing what I think and then publishing it. I work very, very collaboratively, and conversation and trust building is absolutely central to my practice, because I want people to feel comfortable, and I want people to know that they only have to share however much they feel comfortable with. Some people will share very little, but that could be quite profound, and other people are very, very open. I don't expect anything from anyone. It's an invitation, and I spend more time getting to know people and reading around a subject, and embedding myself in a community, or embedding myself in a subject, than I actually do making work. That's really important to me, to get the tone right and the representation right, and that all of the participants are comfortable, you know. And there has been times when people have participated and then changed their minds, and I always remove whatever they want to remove. You know, I'm not one of those artists that kind of says, well, you've signed a consent form and this is my work, so I'm doing it. I'm always very respectful, and I do say that it is a collaboration. You know, I wouldn't be able to make the work without them. And without me, their story wouldn't have potentially a public platform. So that's how I approach all of my work. I try to be as respectful as I possibly can, and I don't push people either. I'm like, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'd like to do. You know, what do you reckon? And there's no pressure. And I think with You Are Another Me, which is about female migrants, it's about the female migrant experience within Europe. And at the time I was trying to emigrate, but Brexit kind of slammed the brakes on that. So that's why it's called You Are Another Me, because I was migrating. I was a migrant. And it got me, and I'm a single woman, you know, and I was doing it on my own. And it just kind of got me thinking too, you know, there's so much bad press or negative stories or very glib stories about migration. You know, it's either one side of the spectrum or the other. It's like, oh my God, these poor people, isn't it dreadful, you know, or, you know, these dreadful people coming and taking over our country. And those narratives, to me, they don't feel very human. It feels like the stories and the people are dehumanized by those narratives, and it made me quite angry. And my family traditionally are nomadic as well, so I'm from a nomadic heritage, so we've had our own dealings with, you know, bias, shall we say. So yeah, it's about other women that migrated, and I didn't just want to collaborate with women who'd had like the traditional in the press, you know, oh, they've come from Syria and they're so brave, and you know, all of that kind of stuff. I wanted it to be a really broad spectrum, so people who might switch off, like, oh, it's about migrants and I don't like migrants and they come to our country and take our jobs, might engage with it. So the women that I've worked with thus far, I've done a pilot in Copenhagen, which I did for 18 months. I worked with what you would call privileged women from wealthy families, highly educated, you know, perhaps even family money, you know, as a safety net. And they maybe moved for a job, or because they'd met a partner, or because they wanted to study, or they wanted to do a PhD. And then other women on that end of the spectrum who were socio-political refugees, and they'd come from Syria and Pakistan and Somalia, but all of the women had travelled alone. So they'd either come completely by themselves, or in a couple of cases with a child, but they hadn't come with a partner, they hadn't come with a family. And I just met so many amazing women just doing the pilot. And even though they'd got such different stories, and all of the women had got such different backgrounds, literally from, you know, a top Swedish surgeon who was from like a family of surgeons and quite a well-known medical family, to, you know, socio-political refugee woman from Syria who literally left with nothing, you know. But there was a lot of crossover in the hopes, the fears, the life that they hoped for. Even logistical problems that they'd both, or women from the spectrum had all come across. You know, what do you take? What do you don't take? What have you got to leave behind? What do you want to leave behind? What do you hope for? Why are we moving? I mean, for some women, that was a pretty easy question to answer. Why are we moving? It's because, you know, their apartment block's being blown up and their husband's being killed, you know. But for women who were from more privileged background, they'd got more agency in exploring those things. So the point of that project was to humanise the migrant experience. And we often hear about men as well, like men travelling and men migrating, and, you know, no one really hears like, what's it like for women? You know, what's it like if you're pregnant? What's it like if you're on your period? You know, what's it like, you know, if you've got a child? What's it like if you've had to leave a child behind? We don't really hear about that in the mainstream press. So that's You Are Another Me.
And for those who haven't seen the project, can you describe the style of the portraits that you took? So I've obviously seen the work.
So I am an old school Luddite. So I work on film, and the work I made on 35mm film. I actually used my dad's Canon AE1 from the 70s that we found at the loft, and I kind of brought it back to life. I did it up and put new seals on, stuff like that. And it's my dad's side of the family that were nomadic, so that was like a nice link to use my dad's old camera, and a medium format camera as well. I've got a Hasselblad and I've got a Mamiya medium format. And the ones that I made initially in Copenhagen, I'm professional. I only use natural light. I don't use lighting. I don't use flash. I don't even use a tripod. Everything's very slow. Everything's very organic, and I like to capture the participants as naturally as possible. I don't use Photoshop. I don't retouch. What you see is you get, and if there's mistakes, or if it, you know, it's tough. It's natural, you know, it's raw. But I'm working Rain Bursary, and the plan was pre-COVID for me to continue making that work in Aarhus, in the same with kind of 35mm and medium format with natural light. But through the Masterclass programs, I started to think about my practice and consider my practice, and I actually started making work on toy cameras, like plastic, like 199, you know, little Japanese plastic toy cameras, and got really good feedback from them. She'd making me think about how can I bring some of the elements from my illustration practice and my art practice into my photography. I was quite formal with my photography, and I think that's because I'm self-taught. I'm a self-taught photographer. I feel like my pictures have got to be perfect. I feel like I've got to prove myself, you know, that I've got this chip on my shoulder, you know, that they've got to be absolutely perfect, and I've got to use a light meter, and I've got to know how to use this 1960s medium format camera, and then I'll be taken seriously. But doing the masterclasses and doing Eats Meets West, I relaxed and I started playing, you know, and I started playing with these toy cameras. So when I do get to go to Aarhus, which, you know, maybe might be next year, hopefully, all being well, I actually plan to make work like that and be a bit more, trying to think of a nice way to put it. Yeah, not to be so hard on myself and be a bit more creative with the storytelling rather than very formal kind of like portraits. So it's flipped a little bit.
And we had a question come through about this project, which was from Emily, and it says, I guess you kind of reflect on this just then momentarily. So how has the lockdown impacted this project? I guess a kind of another a thing I'd like to add to that is, I guess, how have you reflected on this, you know, well, we're in like a global state of kind of a pandemic and panic, and I think, you know, everyone's revisiting narratives differently now. So, well, not you know what I mean, like there's a different understanding of kind of what an emergency is for some people that have never experienced that before. So yeah, how has the lockdown kind of made you consider that project, maybe what you'd like to do with it going forward?
Well, I was meant to be going to Denmark literally as the lockdown ended, so I'd booked my flights, I'd got my apartment, everyone was waiting for me to get there and to arrive, and just collectively as a team, like myself and Nicola Shipley and Stephen Burke from Grain and the Danish partners, we all had a meeting, and we kind of decided it's probably not the best time to fly at then. And literally the day after I was meant to arrive, Denmark shut its borders. So I would still be there now. You know, I'd be kind of like locked in. So that was definitely the right call. So that it's affected it enormously in the fact that I was meant to be in Denmark making work, and I'm not there and didn't get to go. We were then going to reschedule for August. So I was going to try and travel and go over in August. Again, we had another meeting and decided that didn't look likely either. If there was a second wave, or would I have to quarantine, or would Denmark's borders even be open? If they were, would they let a Brit in? You know, would I have to quarantine for 2 weeks when I got there? So I'm actually going to do the research remotely. So the research that I was meant to be doing there in person, I'm going to be doing remotely and digitally, and using WhatsApp and Zoom and WeTransfer, which I'm sitting in a room with someone, obviously, and gaining trust, and it won't be as inclusive as we hoped, because there's going to be some women who won't have access to devices and Wi-Fi. Try and make it as inclusive as we can at this point, and then hopefully I will get to travel in 2021 and sit down in a room and make work. Yeah. So yeah, quite a big change. Thanks, COVID.
And well, actually, a related question we've had from Nicola as well is, how do you find the women that you work with?
Okay, so in Copenhagen, I've got friends in Copenhagen, and I'm so luckily and randomly, my friend that lived in Copenhagen was friends with a guy restaurant that had a training scheme for migrants, so to bring in completely unskilled meet completely unskilled migrants who were in Copenhagen and change them, train them in the culinary arts, and then so she was like, oh, you just need to meet my friend Jacob, and yeah, he works with migrants and there's loads of women, it's great. And that was it. I went for a coffee with Jacob, and me and Jacob hit it off, and he was like, yeah, restaurant, and you know, meet these women, and then it kind of snowballs. Once you meet one, they've got a friend or they know someone, and then through another friend in Copenhagen, I met the Swedish surgeon. I was out in a bar, and I just randomly met an Austrian woman who just moved there. So I told her about the project, and she sat for a portrait, and then she knew a woman from Canada who'd migrated. It just snowballs. I got so lucky in that instance. It was real luck. Usually, you know, you have to put in a lot of time and a lot of effort to even sit down with someone at an organisation that works with the demographic you want to go into. There's often a lot of gatekeepers, particularly with people who are potentially vulnerable and traumatised. And in Copenhagen, I did do that. I did contact some organisations, and it took several emails, and it took, you know, several trips over there to then actually meet the women. Gatekeepers before I was actually to introduce myself to the women. So sending your work out, sending cover letters, sending emails, going in person, not being too pushy, just putting out the invitation and hoping for the best. And sometimes it is just blind luck. Like in that circumstance, it was just, you know, my friend works with migrants, meeting for a coffee, and it was
took off. Okay, thank you, Laura. Obviously, please try and check out that work. Where can people find this body of work? Is it on your Instagram? Or
it's not anywhere at the moment.
Okay.
Then there's a few on my Instagram. If you scroll down, there's a few kind of like test portraits on there. But I'm really bad at posting on Instagram, and I'm always really not releasing my work as well. So I won't put it into the public realm until I'm completely happy with it, and the participants are completely happy with it as well. So you'll all just have to watch this space.
Yeah. Oh, actually, it's probably worth saying as well that that's the same, because we're going to be speaking about 3 projects, and that's actually the same for all of them, isn't it? They're well, one's going to be released very shortly, but they're all kind of they've all been works in progress for a while, and some are still ongoing. Oh, sorry, I just cut out for a moment there.
One's going to be released on. Oh, did I freeze or did you freeze?
I'm not sure, but I can hear you perfectly now.
Yeah, one of my recent projects is actually going to be launched tomorrow. So,
is this Stories in Isolation? Is it Stories in Isolation that's going to be released tomorrow? Okay, great, because that's the next one we have in line to discuss. Yeah. But there have been some comments saying, one from Jack saying, upload some more. So maybe you need to pop out some more works in progress. Whilst, you know, so we can see what you're doing.
I'm not a techie person. I'm not a techie person at all, and I don't like social media, but I will. There will be more. There'll be a flurry soon, I promise.
Yeah. So another kind of thing you're working on is a project called Stories in Isolation, which, as you just said, is being released tomorrow. So it's a perfect time to talk about this project. And this is a multi-story commission, right? Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I have had the pleasure of seeing these works in advance, and they're really, you know, for anyone, please, everyone, I will let you talk about them in a second because that's the juice. But they're really brilliant works. So please check them out. But you explain what they are.
Well, since lockdown, I've become a moving image artist because, like I said, all of my work is based on me traveling and me being embedded in communities and sitting in rooms with people and making their portraits and collaborating with them. So when lockdown happened, like so many people, like so many artists and like so many photographers, I just thought that's it. How am I going to make work? How am I going to meet people? How am I going to make portraits? Because I work with natural light as well, and with film, I already come up across quite a few like sticking points. So I just had to think, how am I going to work? How am I going to work collaboratively? How am I going to make portraits? How am I going to tell stories? And I always do oral history when I make my portraits anyway. I ask my participants for their consent to record some of our conversations, just so I've got their voice. And so, yeah, Emma Chakouti from Multistory contacted me, and I during lockdown, and I just said I'd really like to work with some young people, mentor young people as well, and I do work as an arts advisor with Creative Black Country, so I'm really passionate about working with young people. And I just said I can maybe record Zoom calls and see what happens. Like, I've never used Photoshop, I've never used iMovie, had to watch a lot of YouTube tutorials. I signed up for a Skillshare subscription, and yeah, made 3 short videos. It was a baptism of fire. There were tears, and you know, but yeah, they're 3 short videos working with 4 young people from across Sandwell, and I gave so two of the participants are sisters, and they're in a video together, and a young lad from the Polish community called Tristan, and a young girl called Ruby who's just left college. And I gave each of them a word to meditate on and recorded the Zoom conversation that I had with them, and then invited them to submit their own images, so photographs, drawings, colours, symbols, sounds, and made, I don't even know what you'd call them, Laura, animated photo montage, video shorts, I don't know, an image, whatever. So it's a triptych. It's a triptych of digital remote portraits of these 4 really wonderful, vibrant young people navigating this as teenagers, bless them.
And so the words you chose were hope, love, and community. How did you kind of land on those words to share with them?
All of my work, I like to work with universal themes. So, you know, even though that it was Sandwell based, and all of these young people were in Sandwell, they were all from different backgrounds, and I didn't particularly want to talk just about coronavirus and lockdown, but to explore universal themes that were coming up through COVID and lockdown. So I thought that reading the press, thinking about my own experiences and my family and my friends' experiences, and the concepts and the theories that a lot of people in my life seem to be reflecting on. Hopeless. I wanted the videos to be a positive experience for people. I wanted them to reflect on the future, you know, rather than it being, we're really freaked out, we're really scared, what's going to happen, it's all dreadful. I wanted to offer some reflection for them, you know, and offer them some hope and a bit of light, I suppose, in a really difficult situation. So I felt, you know, a lot of people are feeling hopeless, so let's reflect on hope. A lot of people are feeling really, really lonely and really isolated, so let's talk. Love. I mean, what's more universal than love, and the different kinds of love? And I think, if, you know, without wanting to sound too esoteric, the one thing goes through this is hope, love, and sense of community. So I thought, let's see what the Babs have got to say about it.
Yeah. And it's so, how old are these young people again? Remind us again.
They were, Jess and were the youngest. They were about 11 and 10 and 12.
Mm-hmm.
Experience cancelled and all that kind of stuff. So she was the oldest at 16 and Tristan was 14. So they were all kind of like 11, 16.
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like I've had a lot of like, you know, speculative conversations with friends, like how is this going to affect like younger people, from like early development stages of childhood to kind of the teens. But when I watch these videos, which as we said, they're out tomorrow, it was just like going back in time. It was like remembering what it was like to be, 11 or a teenager, and how you can have such a driving sense of positivity and hope, and kind of things like the beach makes you feel better, or music makes you feel better, seeing your mates, having a sleepover, really good food, like all those natural things that actually make us all feel better. How they are so important to those people, and how it's really reflected in this really quick stylized way. There's emojis, there's images, it's like like a visual poem in how it unfolds, and actually how well it seemed these young people were coping with the virus, that they were aware of it, but it wasn't at the they focused on the positives. And I thought it was a really great reflection of the time and how it could possibly be articulated for those young people. When it's so hard to talk about it while
They
it's
made
happening. Sorry, carry on.
They made me feel better. They made me feel better. You had several Zooms with them. I had a Zoom with them and a parent for, consent and to explain what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And then I had a catch-up Zoom with them to get them to know them a bit better. And then I had the Zoom with them where I actually recorded the conversation. And to say that there were very disparate young people from very different backgrounds, all of them in very different situations now as well, they were so grounded and level-headed and calm. I was like, God, I want to make them feel positive. They've kind of saved me.
Yeah.
They were amazing. They're just four really amazing young people. Nice with just ease and grace. Far better than a lot of adults that I know.
Yeah, and I thought it was very things like topics of community, which are very well, very eloquently spoken about by these young people as well, which I thought was a really nice thing again, of even though people are until recently haven't been able to see many people, the community is still very important to them, which was a really again, it was that kind of bringing people together. Which is really great. So where can people find this work tomorrow?
So it was a multi-story commission. So if you go to the multi-story website, they've got all of the commissions that they've done. So they've commissioned other artists as well from different disciplines, and they've got a stories in isolation page on their website. And I believe that they're going to be shared on the multi-story Instagram TV feed as well. So you can see them. Yeah, follow Multi-Story on Instagram and Twitter and check out their website. That's where they're. If I can figure out how to do it, I'll share them on my Instagram TV as well. But
well, that's another thing.
May or may not be able to.
But you're talking about someone that's an analog photographer who doesn't use Photoshop, who's now making pieces of moving image, short films, however you want to describe them. I mean, it just shows really the journey you yourself have been on during the lockdown. And I don't want to use like cliched words here, but actually it's very hard to learn a new skill and to do that as a commission, and be sharing that like at this time when commissions are happening, but they're also quite scarce opportunities. So it's really amazing how you've adapted your entire practice to suit the lockdown life. Yeah.
Nerves of steel. That's what you need. You've just got to throw yourself into it. And you know, it was either I stop making work completely and I tell people that I don't know what to do and I just ride it out until I can go out and work with communities again, or I have a go at doing, you know, it sounds really cheesy, but I'm a massive David Bowie fan, which you can probably tell from my sparkly dress. You know, I'm a massive, massive David Bowie fan. And there's that quote that's all over Instagram and, you know, Pinterest and stuff of his. It's like, you do your best work when you touch the floor, you know, when you're in the deep end, when you're kind of. And I thought, you know, what would David do? David would do something else. So
yeah, that's really good. And
that's
kind
what
of,
I
I think
did.
that positivity and you know, like moving with the times also reflecting the work. So yes. Okay, so you'll keep moving on. Just a reminder for anybody watching, if you do have any questions, please ask them whilst we have Laura here. That's the great thing about these live conversations. But yeah, and then okay, so the final project we'll be speaking about, possibly, is another commission. It's called Turning Points. Who we are, who we were, who we are, who we will be. Could you speak a bit about this project, please?
Yeah, so this is a project with Creative Black Country, who are absolutely fantastic. Definitely check them out, check their website out and their Instagram. For Artist Country to make something during lockdown, and I just ran with this moving image thing that I'd alchemized. So yeah, I put an application in. I didn't think I'd get it. I thought, this is such a shot in the dark and they're going to just think, why is a photographer making moving image films all of a sudden? Genuinely didn't think I'd get it, but did. And yeah, it's triptych again, like triptychs, like threes, and it's short films, and it's with participants from across all the boroughs of the Black Country, so Wolverhampton, Walsall, Sandwell and Dudley. And I will be exactly the same. I'll be having phone calls and Zoom calls and Skype calls and WhatsApp calls with participants from the different boroughs of the Black Country, from different ages, young people right through to people in their 80s and 90s, discussing, who we were. So the history of the Black Country, a bit of nostalgia about the Black Country, how that shapes the narrative of the area now, who we are. So who are we as individuals and as a community and as a region right now, today, in this situation, and who we will be. So hopes for the future, you know, do people want things to go back to normal? Do they want a new normal? Do they want a better normal? So again, their meditations, their reflections, they're people's voices from the area, and they will be animated, illustrated with, again, photographs, drawings that people send, that people want to share from their family archives and personal archives. And I'll be working with like archive services, so Wolverhampton Archives, Dudley Archives, Black Country Living Museum Archives, and yeah, they won't look aesthetically the same as Stories in Isolation, because they're very bright and colourful, and it's about young people and how they communicate and their visual language. So I feel like I've got a bit of confidence now from doing Stories in Isolation to push myself further. So I'm not quite sure what they're going to look like yet, but I've an idea. They're probably going to be a little bit more fine art-esque, I think. But we'll see what I'm capable of doing.
Yeah, well, it's very exciting. I think, you know, I've had a question come in, but it kind of ties in tangent to kind of what I was going to ask you next, which was, you know, that all sounds really exciting. And actually, so this is a kind of a forthcoming project that's going to be launched this year.
Yes, autumn 2020.
Okay, great. Okay, so you're working on 3 projects, all of which are commissioned and supported by amazing organisations. You work within the UK, you know, you do work kind of on regional projects related to kind of the Midlands, for example, but you do work globally, and that's part of your practice. So I guess we've had a quick, I'll just read out this question we've had come in from Moreno, which is, do your different strands of work as creative producer and artist each inform each other, and if so, how? So how do they tie together or not? And I guess kind of related to that, in your kind of the way you work, I guess, you know, as someone who's having free commissions at the moment, working in this you know, finding all these opportunities, but and also like learning how to kind of adapt to them, kind of what's your advice for kind of finding opportunities, working with organizations, and does perhaps your creative producer background help with your artistic practice? And kind of the same sort of question, really.
Yes, they definitely inform each other. I think that I work so well as a creative producer, particularly with high profile artists, because I'm an artist myself, and I know what it's when you're having a bad day and you think everything's rubbish and nothing's going the way that you want it, and I can completely empathise with that and help another artist manage that, and I can come up with creative ideas myself. We can have creative conversations. I understand the process, I empathise with them, I sympathise with them. So I think that being an artist is definitely a strength in being a creative producer, because I get it. And being a creative producer definitely informs my work as an artist, because I know that I've got that. It sounds really boring, it doesn't sound very interesting, but it's really important. Like, you've got to be organised. You know, these opportunities don't just often fall out of the that you manage it well. So as a creative producer, I can project manage, I can do a schedule, I can do a budget, time, I'm early. You know, I've got all of those skills. You know, I know form about, you know, public source images, I know all about copyright, you know, it's all of that kind of like boring stuff that goes behind creating an environment for yourself to actually make work and actually get commissions. You know, it's, if you want to be an artist and it's not your profession, you've got an income and a job, and you want to make art purely for the joy of it, that's one situation. If you want to be a professional artist and this is your livelihood, and it's literally whether, you know, you pay your bills and you eat and whatever, you've got to nail the organizational stuff. So working with high profile artists and working on big budget projects, as a I can speak to directors, I can speak to artists, I can speak to other creative producers, I can speak to publishers, I can speak to curators. You know, you learn the language.
Yeah.
What was the second part of that, Jen? Any advice, was it?
Yes. Any advice, I guess, and you know, it's your experience as a producer really benefits your creative practice. So what, I guess you've kind of answered that again though, because you just said you have to be incredibly organized and like manage yourself well. You have to be your own everything. Oh no, I can, sorry, the connection cut out briefly, but we're back.
Okay, you were back. Yeah, I'm still kind of learning to do it myself. You've got to be able to walk that fine line, and you've got to be able to, when you're making artwork and you've got your artist hat on, you've got to be able to completely let go and completely forget about all of the logistical stuff, and you've just got to throw yourself into your creativity and throw yourself into your art and make the very best art that you can make, and just abandon. But then when you've got to put the sensible hat on, you've got to be really, you know, you're a professional artist, which is fantastic, but you're still a professional, you know, turn up on time. Know what they expect from you, do your research, you know, put in applications, make sure your applications are of quality. You know, it's just take it seriously. I think, you know, I meet a lot of people, and you know, you might be a brilliant artist, really, really creative, but if you send a really sloppy email, you're not getting a response. You know, it can be as simple as that. It's not cool fun, and it's a lot of things that a lot of people don't want to talk about or think about, and they think that their, you know, their pure talent will pull them through. Not very often. You need to be able to, you know, take a meeting, and you need to be able to have some phone etiquette, and you need to be able to word an email appropriately, and all your time. You know, don't take on a commission. If you take on a commission, you've got to do the budget. That's it. Got to. You're responsible for that. You're responsible for doing your own accounts. You're responsible for hitting the deadlines. You know, it's people. Yeah, if you've got to be professional. That's my best guess.
Yeah,
you have to be really, really, really talented for people to not take that seriously.
Yeah. Okay, so we've had two other questions. This one is from Joseph, who had a talk, Joseph Keys, who had a talk the other day, which can all be found on the Instagram TV account on this page. So it says, are you wanting to continue your creative producer roles, or are you working to move into being an artist full time?
Oh, it cut out a little bit then, Laura. I just heard, do you want to continue your creative producer role? That's all I heard.
Okay, so that's, so yeah, do you want to continue a creative producer role, or are you wanting to moving to be an artist full time?
I am shifted towards me. Yeah, I would love to be a full-time artist, but I also really enjoy working with other creatives. I actually find it a creative practice within itself, being a producer. I think I've got the balance kind of right at the moment. Actually, it's kind of 75% creative production, and you know, I'm an arts advisor and consultancy stuff. So, but yeah, if I, you know, it just that kind of stuff tends to sort itself out.
Okay, and we've got another question. Thank you, Thomas Wine. So a lot of your recent projects are for commissions or to a set brief. Is there any personal work or projects that you're working on, either for public eyes or just for yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I'm going to sound really, really spoiled now, but all of the commissions that I'm working on at the moment, I wrote my own brief. That is like artist gold. So I actually all of the projects that I'm working on, I wrote my own brief, which is another great creative producer plus. So I feel very, very lucky that the people that have commissioned me have literally said, what do you want to do? Which is like winning the lottery. And I'm so grateful. Like I'm so lucky, and I'm so grateful for those opportunities. And yeah, I actually have an enormous work that I never actually show anyone, that is just for me, that you know, someone will probably find the negatives in a box in a skip maybe in 50 years time. But yeah, I make an awful lot of work for myself, and that's really important, because all of the commissions that I do, even though I'm super lucky and I sometimes get to write my own briefs, all of that work is public facing. It's working with the public, it's working with participants, and I need something just for myself that I know this is just for me, and no one's ever going to see it, and no one's ever going to know about it. So yeah, I've got a stash that maybe in 20 years time I might unleash, or yeah, someone will just find in a bin and go, look at all these old negatives, I wonder who made them.
Thank you, Laura. I've got another question from Nicola Morley. So, have you always had an intrinsic self-belief, or did you have to work on that?
Oh God, Nicola, that's a good question. I always knew from a kid I couldn't do anything but art, and that, I guess that sounds a little bit art world cliche, but I knew, and I am dyscalculate as well, and I had a lot of problems at school, because no one, when I was at school, people were just kind of getting to know what dyslexia was, and no one knew about dyspraxia or being dyscalculate. So I'm pretty severely dyspraxic, and I'm pretty dyscalculate as well, to the point where one of my teachers actually asked my dad what's wrong with her, because we don't actually believe she's this stupid, and I was trying my best. So I always knew that I loved art, and I loved creativity, and I loved storytelling, and so I always knew from a little kid that I was good at that. And I was really lucky, like as a really young child, I was, you know, there was always books in the house, very, very working class upbringing, you know, but there were always books in the house, and I was always encouraged to draw, and I was always, like, I used to make books and all of that kind of stuff. And I used to just make things out of anything I could get my hands on. I'd make something. I wasn't interested in the TV. I wasn't interested in computer games. You know, I just wanted to make stuff all the time, and I knew, I guess, deeply inside me that I was really good at that. And I also knew that that was the only thing I was going to be able to do. Like, I wasn't be able to hold down an office job. I wasn't going to be able to hold down a full-time mainstream job. Like, all I could do was make stuff, and make stuff look nice, or make stuff look good, or make look stuff right. You know, that was my skill. And yeah, I guess it was like, I can remember being a little kid and just thinking, I'm really good at this, you know, but being very, very aware that there were a lot of things that I was very, very bad at as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm great, but it was just like, I'm really rubbish at that, and I think that there's something really seriously wrong with me, but I'm definitely good at stuff, and I just clung to it, I guess. But yeah, at college, like, I got told, like, you're rubbish, just go and get a job, and then I got told I was all style and no substance, and I just kind of thought, I think they're wrong, you know. And I don't know why I thought that, because, you know, I'd got no one telling me I was good. Like, no one externally was saying, you know, you're really good at this, Laura. That was just, yeah, just from inside me. I was just like, I think they're wrong, I'm going to carry on anyway. But then, obviously, as any creative, any artist, I have, like, shattering moments of self-doubt, you know. And what am I doing? Am I just lucky? Imposter syndrome, you know. One day someone's going to work out that I'm not meant to be doing this, or one day someone's going to realize that I'm no good, or, do you know what I mean? I struggle with that still today. Like, you know, I have to manage that. Yes, but yes, as well, there was an intrinsic,
Laura,
I'm good at this.
I'm
Yeah.
really sorry, there's 9 seconds remaining, so we're going to rejoin live for a few
Okay.
minutes after this. There's 4 seconds left, so please
Okay.
rejoin. We're going to go live again. Thanks for people rejoining. We're just rounding up the conversation, which the whole conversation will be on Instagram TV. I'm just waiting for Laura to join. Thanks everyone that's come back. It's really nice to see. Here we go. Laura's joining me again. Hiya.
Hey.
So I think just carry on, Laura, if you can.
Yeah, Nicola's question. So yeah, I think, yeah, I just knew I couldn't do anything else, and I don't really like being inside. Like, I don't really like being inside buildings. I like being out and about. I like traveling. I could never sit in an office 9 till 5. I just, my personality, and I guess it probably is down to the neurodiversity as well. You know, I've got a list. I'm ambidextrous, I'm dyspraxic, I'm dyscalculate, I'm synesthesic. Do you know what I mean? It's I just need freedom.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just knew it's this or, you know, nothing. And I just knew I knew I could put things together, and I knew I could do it. And yeah, I just have to navigate the imposter syndrome and the nerves, and it is really difficult. And I don't think enough people talk about that. I don't think enough people, artists, are kind of truthful about the emotional and mental strain of that. You know, being a freelancer, not being from a wealthy family, you know, not having a safety net. It is stressful, and it is something that you do have to constantly manage and constantly navigate. And you do have really bad days, and sometimes you have really bad weeks, and you do think, what am I doing? I should just try and get a job. This is never going to work. I'm never going to get another commission. And for all of the amazing commissions that you get so many rejections, you know. And so you might look at someone, you know, who seems to be doing well, and they've got a couple of commissions on the go, like me at the moment. But a couple of months ago, I was in exactly the opposite situation, where I'd had, like so many other creatives, I'd had so much cancelled because of COVID. Solo exhibitions, group exhibitions, workshops, talks, the, you know, international bursaries, meetings, you know, everything just boof. And I applied for so much stuff, and it was just no, 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 one after the other, you know. And you just think, what am I doing? What am I going to do? And it is really frightening. And I don't think a lot of people want to talk about the good stuff, and that they're really busy and they're doing lots of amazing stuff. But if we were having this conversation 2.5 months ago, it would have been a completely different conversation, you know. I think learning how to manage that and ride that out, and know that it's going to get better, and then know in 6 months' time I'm probably going to be wondering where the next project's coming from, and having loads of rejections again, and then it kind of evens out. You've just got to stick with it.
Yeah. And thank you. That's a really honest answer. Not one you hear often, about kind of personal journeys and coping with it all, really. And I think I've heard a lot of stories very similar, of people just really hoping to try and, year by year, they're just trying to find that balance, just trying to level out to cover the costs, to manage hopes, expectations. And then something like, you know, COVID comes along, and it could be the year, and then everything stops again. So it's yeah, that Nicola's just commented saying, who asked the question, Nicola Morley, to put, your openness is wonderful and so helpful and kind. And I second that. So yeah, it's really great. But we probably should start rounding up. We've gone over the hour we had on Instagram, but I'm glad we finished off the question. And the whole conversation will be available on Instagram TV to watch. Is there anything else that you'd like to say, Laura?
I don't know. I can't think of anything really, other than I'm in solidarity with every single artist and creative at the moment. It's a really strange time, and I've got so many friends who are artists and creatives, especially those in performing arts and theatre and dance. And I just really appeal to everyone to support each other. You know, this isn't the time to backbite and get the knives out, and we really need to all pull together at the moment and support each other. And, you know, if you get offered an opportunity that's not right for you, you know, put one of your friends forward, share it, you know, share your friends' work, share opportunities. I've been doing that a lot during lockdown. Like, I've got friends who are writers. If I see something, I send it to them. If I've got friends who are, you know, facilitating, I see something, I send it to them. I don't want to be all doom and gloom, but I think it's going to be a bit tricky over the next 12, 18 months. So I feel for everyone, we're all in the same boat, and yeah, just let's all see each other
Yeah.
and share the work.
I completely agree. So on that kind of a similar note, just for everyone to be reminded again, Laura has some new work that's going to be launched on Multi-Stories platform tomorrow. It's called Stories in Isolation, as I've mentioned many times and Laura's elaborated on. It's some really great short works about these young people's experiences in Sandwell, but just displayed in this really amazing way. Do watch them, and you can find Laura's website, which is www.lauradicken.com, which is dicken.com, and she's also on Instagram, and it's Laura_Dicken. So please keep watching these In Conversation With talks. I've loved being here and talking with you, Laura, so thank you so much. And the next one is on the 22nd of July, and it's with Lucy Turner. So please tune back in 8 p.m. for that, and do check out the East Meets West websites. It's been hard work for them all to make it like Laura. They've all had to adapt to these times. They're meant to be having an exhibition, but they've done an amazing job at doing all this. It's eastmeetswestphoto.co.uk. There's an amazing publication, there's these talks, and you need to look at all the people that are part of this masterclass program, because as these talks demonstrate, they're all brilliant. So please do check back in. But thank you so much to everybody that's watched, that's made comments, asked questions. It really makes the conversation so much more interesting, for, you know, and dynamic. And thank you so much to Laura, who's just been so truthful, honest, and talks about her work so wonderfully on Instagram TV, where you can't even see the work. But I think hopefully people at home have got a sense of it. So thank you, Laura.
You so much, Laura.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, okay, thanks everyone.
Great to speak to you.
Oh,
thank you everyone as well for listening.
Exactly. Okay, well, we'll say goodbye. Bye everyone.
Thank you. Bye.